Okay, so today we're going to take a look at doing my own motorbike in the custom paint job that we started a little while back that got a little bit delayed due to the virus. So as you can see, we've already marked out a design. Now this is a design that we've come up with ourselves that is loosely based around the HRC design that they have on the Honda motorcycles. It's something that I really like the colour scheme of, the red, the white and the blue, and we have tweaked the colours a little tiny bit, but we wanted our own design. Now when fine lining, you do want to make sure before you start painting that in all these tiny little corners and where the tape overlaps, that you push every single one of them overlaps down to make sure that there's no paint bleed or anything. And it is pretty essential that you do make sure that you go around and triple check all those areas before you start laying paint down. Now to be on the safe side, I always seal my fine line with some clear base coat first. This again will help eliminate any issues as far as paint bleed goes, because if I put this clear base coat down and there's a tiny little bit of bleeding on that fine line, which I have to say with this J-tape fine line doesn't happen very often at all, I find it extremely good, and I just want to say a big thanks to them for sending us some out to do this motorcycle with. I will always seal it anyway, just better safe than sorry really, because the amount of work that actually went into masking this design out across this bike was a lot of hours worth of work. So sealing this up, if any of this clear base coat creeps underneath the fine line, obviously that's not an issue, and once I've put this coat of clear base down, if I put a colour on top, the tape edge is already sealed, so if the red or blue were to creep, it's got nowhere to go because this is already sealing off the tape edge. And I hope that makes sense. It's just again one of those little tiny processes that might add 10-15 minutes to the job but could save you hours in the long run, and it means that when you pull this off, you're going to have these really nice clean crisp edges. Now for myself, the tinter on our Lessenol scheme is 04. It's a converter as it's called on our scheme, and it's generally used as a wet bed, or there's quite a high content of it in sort of metallic silvers and that sort of thing, but it makes an ideal base to seal up all these edges with, and as I say, just pretty much almost completely eliminate any colour bleed whatsoever. Now my spray gun of choice would be the Segola 4600. I'm using the DVR Aqua and I've got it in a 1.2 XL, which for our particular paint scheme I find absolutely outstanding. Since picking up these Segolas last year, I've got to say I've got a full set of these in the shop and I don't use anything else really. I have got a DV1, I've got a couple of Iwatas, I've got a couple of SATAs, I've got a couple of other guns, but I tend to find that these are the ones that stay on my gun rack and that I pick up daily, just for ease of use. More than anything, I can just pick it up, smash a car out and know that I'm confident in the gun that I'm using. I've got no finicky setups or anything like that. I don't have to play around with the fan or anything like that. I can just leave a full fan and just get cracking on it straight away. Now for the colour, this is the stock Honda red, and then what I have done is actually added some red pearl into this red just to give it that little bit of an extra shine, and I'm just going to go across and give the actual red sections 2 coats. I'd say moderately wet coats. I'm not going like overly heavy because I don't want a massive paint build against the fine line tape, and I'm just being conscious to try and stay away from where I want to put the blue on shortly. Now the other part that I will say is picking which colour you put down first is again quite key here. So I've used red because red notoriously is bad for coverage. So I'd rather put the red down first and then I can mask off the red areas and then shoot the blue in the areas that I need to afterwards. Now there is also still the Segola sale running at PMP Supplies where you can still get 20% off. I will also leave a link in the video description and the Segola sale code for you guys as well if you're looking at a new base gun or a new clear gun. Myself, I'm currently running all Segola 4600s. I've got the DBR Clear in the 1.3 XL, and I've got the DBR Aqua in the 1.2 XL, and absolutely love these guns. Rock these guns all day, every day, whether it be sort of one-off work like this, the sort of high-end repaints that we do, or just the everyday repair work. I find them really versatile, really fast, easy to use, quick setup, and I've got to say, with all the guns that I've got in the Segola range, I've not had one issue with them yet. So for me, these are an ideal choice. Also, YouTube has enabled a new feature where you can actually become a member of the channel, and you can actually join the channel. So we have set up a few perks, and for any channel member, you will from this day forward get a shout out in a video. We will put a little scrolling list of members' names on the videos, and also if you pick the higher of the two channel members, then there will also be every now and again, at least once or twice a month, we will put up an exclusive member video for you guys, just as a little bit of a thank you for your support, because the support that you guys show us and have showed us on Patreon and things like that do help us with the camera gear and the computer gear that it takes to actually continue to keep on making these videos. Because as mad as it sounds, it does actually cost quite a lot each year to keep running a YouTube channel. And hopefully, fingers crossed, now this virus has settled down a bit, we can get a little bit more out of the workshop and not less concentrating on the business, but I can concentrate a little bit more on YouTube again. And I am sorry there hasn't been many uploads this past few months. It's just with the virus and everything, and obviously the effect that's had on the economy. A lot of my focus and my time recently has been on the family and the business rather than making videos. But we have got tons and tons of footage, so now things have started to settle down a little bit more and get a little bit more stable. Then I've got that little bit of extra free time to start cracking out some videos again. So I thought the first video that I'll finish is my own motorbike here, because I've just recently finished this off after taking a bit of a sort of break myself from the sort of stresses and strains of the daily work to actually do a job for myself for once, which was nice. And then we've got a few review videos on the cards coming very, very shortly. I'm going to be doing a review of the multi-mix clear from Repair and Refinish. That will be coming very soon. And also I've got a little bit of a special project that we've just done recently in the shop, so I'm just working on editing the footage up for that as well. And I know quite a few of you guys have been asking to see the part 2 on my motorbike, so I thought I'd get this all done and dusted now that it is done and she's back on the road and it's looking $1 million now. So I thought I'd get this finished off for you guys so you can see just how nice it looks now it's all finished. So once we've completed all the red on this bike, what I've done is then mask all the areas off that were in red, and now we're going to be putting the candy blue down. So we're going to start off with a straight tint off the scheme again, which is a coarse metallic silver. Now this coarse metallic silver will give the candy blue a real nice shine when the light hits it or when the sun hits it directly, because all this coarse metallic will shine really nicely through the candy surface. So again, for this, obviously we sealed everything before we started with the clear base coat, so I don't have to worry too much about putting the paint on wet, so to speak. I don't want to go too wet, because on this stage we're going to have to put a coat of silver down and then put around about 2 to 3 layers of the candy over the top. So again, I'm being conscious about paint build. So for the silver coat, I'm just going to put 1 coat of the silver down, make sure I've got really nice, really good coverage on this silver coat, let that dry down, and then we can start putting the candy on. Now for panel prep, before we actually masked up this design, we used a P1000 all over the panels on a dry disc, and then I went around all the edges and all the little nooks and crannies with 1000 hand pad and also some red scotch. Now the bonus with this is, because we've used the clear base coat, any scotch marks or any 1000 marks will be well sealed out by that clear base coat. So any sanding or prep scratches will have been sealed out by the clear base, which gives us the option that we can just 1 coat the silver as long as we get good coverage. if we were going over this without putting the clear base coat down, then I'd want to be putting 2 good coats of silver down to make sure that any prep marks or anything were obviously eliminated from that surface, because the last thing that we want with the candy is any tiny little scratch or prep mark or anything showing through. And plus, with this being my own motorbike, and I am a bit of a bike nut, and I do like quite loud, leery colour designs, lots of stickers, you know, I like it to look like it's going 100 miles an hour when it's sat still. You know, I want this paint job to be faultless. You know, my level of OCD on this bike, shall we say, has been absolutely ridiculous. We have completely pretty much nut and bolt rebuilt this whole bike. We've rebuilt all the brakes, re-cerakoted all those. We've taken the frame, painted the frame, we've painted the swing arm, we've painted the wheels. Just in the wheels on this bike, I've actually put around about 3.5 days worth of work into them. It's quite crazy, but now that it's done, and I think you'll agree by the pictures at the end, it now does not look like a bike that is pushing near 20 years old. This style of the CBR, which is the CBR600RR on the 2003 2004 model, has always been my favourite out of all the CBRs. I've owned this one for a couple of years. I actually took this off the road a few years ago when I was suffering a little bit with my mental health, so I decided it wasn't a good idea to have like 180 mile an hour superbike on the road. So I took it to work, I cut the chain off it, and I left it at work for a while. And it's just been one of them things that I've been waiting to get round to doing, and now that I'm better in myself, I really want to get it back on the road. And my friend Kerry, who actually helped me with the masking up on this and the design work on one Sunday, he asked me if I could help him out and go and pick his up. And as soon as I went and picked his up, then I got the bug straight back for it, and I decided to take 2 weeks of all my spare time, a lot of late nights, a lot of long weekends, and actually get my own bike finished and do this one-off paint job on it. And that's something these days that I've got to say, I don't really get time to do that often. Obviously with the family and business and YouTube and everything else, it's rare that I ever do get the time to sort of take time out and do something for myself. So to actually be able to do my own motorbike, 'cause I love the job that I do, so to actually design and paint my own motorbike in exactly the colour scheme that I wanted, as much as some people would see that as work, it was a really nice break from work actually, and I really enjoyed doing it as well, and I feel a lot better now. I have. Now for the candy blue stage, we're going to do the same as what we've done before. We're just going to start shooting this candy blue layer over the top. Now this is the Honda Candy, I think it's Tahitian blue. I will leave the links to the colour codes in the description for you guys, just in case you do want them. But it's a really nice blue. It's on a few models of the Hondas, like the Honda Hornets, the Honda Blackbirds, the CBRs, and a few others. And all I want to do with this is get a couple of nice even wet coats and make sure that I've got good nice even coverage, because this does touch in some areas, areas that are also candy blue, like the belly pan that we've painted off camera that's already been done, and stick it up. Because in order to do this, I needed to paint all the fairings in white, and then we did the mudguard, the belly pan and everything in their respective colours that they would be staying in. And then once all the panels have been panel prepped to like P1000, we actually had to rebuild the whole bike in order to mask the pattern out. And then having that certain level of OCD, which I can't really help, we then got a micrometer out, and when we masked out the design on one side, we then got a micrometer out on the other side of the bike, so not one part of the design on the other side of the bike is more than 0.2 of a millimeter out, which is pretty goddamn accurate. But when you actually sat on the bike where all these patterns come up and join together, if you were sat on the bike you would notice quite easily if it was very far out. So we made sure everything was in a sort of tolerance of about 0.2 of a millimeter. That way it'd keep my sort of OCD part of my mind happy that everything was nice and even, and also would make it a complete one-off, and a very accurate one-off as well. When it comes to designs like this where you've come up with a one-off pattern, you need to make sure that it's obviously replicated as close to perfect both sides as is physically possible. So for us, that was 6 hours, one Sunday, a McDonald's breakfast, a lot of coffees, a lot of head scratching, quite a bit of swearing, and quite a few rolls of fine line tape, if I'm honest with you. But it makes the difference when the job's done. I'd rather spend a whole day masking this design out on the Sunday and then come in on the Monday and paint it and know that it is perfect, rather than try and wing it on a Sunday morning in an hour or two and then be really annoyed for the rest of the time that I own the bike that, say, the pattern on one side's a couple of mil out to where the pattern is on the other side. That for me just will not do. Especially when it's my own bike, it's going to be at work a lot, so this can be used as a bit of a showpiece if a customer comes in and wants to see, you know, just the level of detail that we really can go to on a vehicle as far as paintwork goes. This is now a really good showpiece as well to have at work, for customers that come in that want to see work that we've done, and to just say, right, we'll go and take a look at my bike. And also, we've just started up a second part to the business, doing powder coating and cerakoting, and a lot of parts. Lad that I work with, Mick, has cerakoted a lot of parts on this bike, has made an absolutely stunning job of them as well, which has really made the look of the bike. So a big thanks to Mick for all his effort and his work on it, because the parts that he's done, like the brakes, a lot of the nuts and bolts, the linkages, the rear sets and stuff like that, really have made this into a really special, fully rebuilt one-off bike. And without lads like that helping me do it, you know, I wouldn't have been able to get it completed in the time that I did. It's not often that I get a lot of spare time, so the help from my friend Kerry, who owns a shop in the town next to me, and also Mick that I work alongside with in the other business now, the help from them has been invaluable to get this bike finished. So as you can see now, this has all been demasked now, reset up, all cleaned down, and it's time for the clear coat. So as you can see, everything has got such real nice, crisp, clean lines, and especially when you've got something like a white base to a paint job like this, you want to make sure you give it a really good clean, make sure there's no dirty finger marks anywhere on this bike, because if there's one tiny little dirty mark in this white paintwork anywhere, it is going to show up tenfold when it gets outside in the sun. And because we put a splash of pearl in every colour, so we put a little bit of pearl in the white, we put some pearl in the red, obviously the candy's full of it anyway, then we wanted that to have this whole really nice big sheen to it, so any tiny little finger mark that's a, you know, a dirty finger mark or anything like that is just going to absolutely ruin the look of this paint job. And to be honest with you, this is really not a design that I want to go and repaint again, because it would take absolutely hours and hours worth of work just in masking sections out in order to redo it. So for clear coat, I am using the trusty Chronox 610. I am using it 2:1 with no thinners in it, because I want a nice thick build to this. Because of all the line work on this, I did this in 3 coats. I did the first coat, left it around about 10 minutes to flash off, put the second coat down, left it around about 15 minutes to flash off, if not closer to 20 minutes to flash off, just to reduce any risk of runs or sags or anything, and then put the third coat down after that 15-20 minute flash off. Now, being a UHS, this isn't something that I'd say you'd want to spray 3 really heavy wet coats like this neat if you're doing it in an air dry situation. I put these on quite a long slow bake for about an hour to try and help cure this through. And once I'd gone across and denibbed all these panels and polished them, I did give them a second bake just to make sure that that film build was nice and dry before we rebuilt the bike. Which was obviously a bonus of having the bake. If you were putting 3 coats down this thick and this heavy and you're in an air dry setting, then I'd say ideally I'd want to leave it a week before you started messing around with it. Because we have got the bake option, we gave this a long, I'd say low bake, but we baked it at 50 degrees for about an hour, just nice and long and slow to get the clear coat to go off as well as we could. We then denibbed all the panel work, polished it, and then I stuck it through another 30-minute bake at 50 degrees just to make sure everything was really hard and that any dieback would show up before we rebuilt the bike, because it is a bit of a show bike as well as obviously being my little toy, so to speak. For clear coat, I'm using the Segola 4600 DVR Clear with the 1.3 XL tip. I tend to find, depending on the job that I'm doing, I run this around about 1.8 to 2 bar. If I want a real nice sort of like, I really want to smash a real flat finish on, then I'd probably be using it at around about 2 bar like I am here, because my priority with this is to get a real nice, good, thick, flat coat over this. I don't want to be messing around for days trying to polish all these really fiddly areas, so we just want to get a really nice flat finish on this. And I'd say I'm running around about 2.5, possibly 3 turns out on the fluid on this, but at the same time I have got the booth cranked up to around about 28 degrees just to try and eliminate any chances of getting runs or sags in these panels, because again, if you got a run or a sag in one of these panels now, you'd have a bit of an issue with the fact that everything's so curved. It's not the easiest to get runs out of motorbike panels, especially when they've got this many shapes and swage lines to it. And as you can see, in between I have also fitted all the decals that I wanted to fit as well. So in between each stage of base coat, I would leave it around about 20 to 30 minutes with the heat on and the booth running, just to make sure that all these colours were 100% flashed off. I then gave it around about 10 minutes with the bake cycle running to try and really dry these colours out before I demasked it, and then we fit the graphics after that, because I knew that the base coat would be more than dry enough by that point. If you're using solvent base coat rather than water based like we do, then you'd be able to do it a little bit sooner and without having to run an extra little bake to dry it off in between. But I just wanted to make 100% sure that all this water base was well dried through before we started putting the clear down. Now these two particular white panels, these have got no graphics or any colours added, but at the same time, because we've re-cleared the rest of the bike, I'm going to also re-clear them, just so everything's got the same amount of clear coat. It also means that obviously with it being a bike that's used, it's not just going to sit there for, you know, its whole life. This thing does get used and covered in dirt and mud, and the missus gets on the back of it, and because of that I wanted to make sure there's a good layer of clear down, so if I do get a little scuff or a little scratch in it, I've got plenty to flatten polish out. Now this bottle that I'm doing here, a friend of mine, Ben, does some custom controllers and custom bottles and stuff like that. Every now and again he drops one down and we'll clear coat them up, and he dropped one down this particular day when I was about to clear coat my bike, so I just chucked that in the booth along with the rest of the parts that we're doing. And for you guys obviously that are watching this video, if you've got any questions, as always, chuck your questions down in the comment section below and I will always do my best to get back to you. If you've got any questions about any of the processes that we've done or anything like that, or if you want to see any more work like this, because we have got some more jobs coming up like this at the moment, then do let me know and we'll do our best to get some more video footage and also go into a little bit more detail on some of the other steps like the fine line work and stuff like that. So for the second coat of clear, I have left my spray gun settings exactly the same. I'm around about 2.5 to 3 turns out and I'm running at 2 bar. Again, I'm not sort of going very carefully, so to speak. I want a real good, nice, wet, flat finish to this when it's done. And obviously because we put those colours on there, I want a really nice colour build over those paint edges, so that a light flat across them paint edges, and then that'll pretty much eliminate any feel to those paint edges and those paint lines, because that's one thing that I don't really like. Now obviously we're clear coating over all the decals. Again, that's more of a long term sort of longevity thing more than anything, because I do use my bike quite a lot. It is a bike to be ridden, not just to be looked at. I want all those edges of those decals and everything to be sealed in, so that when I polish it or when I ride it or I wash it, none of those edges are going to get snagged or caught or anything like that. And it is quite as simple as you can just fit decals and clear coat over them, I've seen a lot of questions recently where people are asking, do you need to scotch them or anything like that? In my personal opinion, it is a no. I have done countless custom jobs like this on bikes. I've never once scotched a decal. I've always just fitted them to a freshly prepped panel and then clear coated over them. If you can, it's always good to put a little bit of heat around them first, because decals can shrink under heat. Obviously it's plastic, and as it heats it can shrink. So if you can get a little bit of heat around them, even just a light go over with the heat gun just to get any shrinkage out of the way before you clear coat them, then that is always best. And you know, again, it's one of them little processes. It a bit like the clear base coat, it might add an extra 10 minutes to the job, but that extra 10 minutes here and that extra 10 minutes there could save you hours and hours worth of work, and also give you something that looks 10 times the paint job to what you could have done. Because as daft as it sounds when they say it is all in the prep, I only spent probably an hour or two in the booth painting this bike, but the actual prep work that went into the design and the paint, the masking alone, there was probably 8 hours worth of masking that went into this design work across the whole bike, and then all the fitting the decals and everything. It's worth it. You know, the key to a successful paint job is all in the preparation, and especially on something like this, it was all in the masking, the cleaning, the design work, all those things that just made it just a complete and utter one-off stunning bike when it's done. And in a minute you will be able to see a little video walk around of the bike and some pictures of the bike at the end, and I hope you guys do like it. It's something that I've been waiting a long time to do, and I've put off for a long time because for quite some time I didn't want it back on the road, but now I'm feeling better in myself and I wanted to get it back on the road. It was really nice to actually get on it, and like I said, as mad as it might sound to some people, get a little bit of time with my head out of work and actually get my head into something that I really wanted to do for myself for once. And for those of you out there, you know, during lockdown and that sort of thing, you'll know what I mean by that. It's not been an easy year for a lot of us as business owners, or as just people in general, with this virus and everything that's been going on. So this gave me a bit of a release, and a bit of good headspace to get away from all that. And as crazy as it is, you know, my release from a lot of things is to get in the booth, fill the spray gun up, and just get laying some paint down. I never sort of feel as far away from all the troubles in the world and everything that's going on in the world as I do when I'm in the booth. I've got my headphones in and I'm just doing my thing. It's just where I find my peace. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys, and I will see you again soon for the next one. Bye for now.